Kindly be seated. A top of the morning to everyone. Welcome to August edition of the Premier's Monthly Press Conference. As you are aware, these press conferences are designed to bring a new sense of openness, transparency, and accountability to the Nevis Island administration. This morning press conference will be formatted as follows. The Premier will make his statement. Members of the press corps will be given the opportunity to ask their questions. In so doing, you're kindly asked to give your name and the agency/organization that you represent, just in case we have to give follow-up information at the end of the press conference. You're kindly asked to turn your phones off or put them on silence if convenient. Ladies and gentlemen, without further gilding the lily, join me in welcoming to the podium the Honorable Premier of Nevis, Mark A.G. Brantley.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, those who are viewing via NTV and other platforms, and certainly to those who are listening via radio or who are tuned in via the internet. I just want to say a good morning to you and welcome to the press conference for the month of August 2022. We have some very important information to impart, and so let me get to it. Let me start, as always, with some congratulations. I want to congratulate a well-known star here on the island of Nevis, Kenny Easy Warner. He competed in the 2022 World Championship of Performing Arts held in Anaheim, California. He competed against many other artists from across the globe, and he made it to the semifinals. So congratulations to Kenny. Congratulations as well to the St. Paul's Parish Under-25 basketball team. They were victorious in the Under-25 basketball parish league. In the final match, they defeated St. George 72 to 66. So that was quite a close match. Congratulations to them. Congratulations to young Light Brown from Brownhill, if I might add, Amri Jones and Krishna Gadaj for being selected to the Leeward Island Under-15 cricket squad, which competed in the recently concluded tournament held in Grenada. Commendations to Light Brown for being selected vice captain of the Leeward's team. Let me also congratulate my good friend, Mr. Shervin Green. He has been elevated to head coach of the Monroe College Mustangs track and field program ahead of the 2022-2023 academic year. Shervin continues to do excellent work there in New York, and we commend him and his family. Let me also congratulate Mr. Orion Stapleton. He's the son, of course, of Dr. Ernie Stapleton of our PS in the Ministry of Works. And young Orion is one of 20 recipients of the Vivian Thomas Scholarship Award at the Johns Hopkins University, that world-famous university. This award will allow students to pursue their PhDs in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and math at Johns Hopkins. Let me also congratulate young 23-year-old Erin Herbert of Cotton Ground Village. He was selected as the first ever recipient of the Nevis Electricity Nevlex Cedric Ambristos Scholarship. Erin will pursue studies in mechanical engineering at the University of the West Indies. There's so much to congratulate, so let me continue in that vein. Miss Joy Napier, she has been named the 2022 Chevening Scholarship recipient. The recipients of this fully funded British government scholarship will pursue a one-year master's degree at a UK university. Joy will pursue studies in international development at the University of Edinburgh. And of course, let me congratulate young Carlin Tuckett and Onaje Amri for being part of the victorious Leeward Islands Under-19 cricket team, which competed in the recently concluded regional Under-19 tournament held in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Carlin Tuckett captained the victorious Leeward Islands team, and Onaje Amri received the award for most wickets taken in the tournament. Can I hear you say something good is happening in Nevis? And I'm very impressed with these youngsters. They would have returned home. And of course, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, as always, the Minister of Youth and Sports, was on hand to welcome them. We congratulate them and their families. And if I can be allowed a moment of levity, I always have a running joke with Colin's mom, because she She is here from Barbados, and I always say Carlin is Nivision, not Barbadian. So that's a running joke, but congratulations to them and to their family. Let me also congratulate well-known cricketer Jayden Carmichael. He has been drafted into the St. Kitts Nevis Patriots, and he performed creditably with the ball in the just concluded 60 tournament in St. Kitts, which the Patriots won. Young Kezran Archibald as well, he must be singled out for mention for his credible performance with the senior Leewood's team in their tournament earlier this year. And of course, how can I forget young Jamal Lewis and Chris Brown of Nevis. They were selected to the St. Kitts Nevis under-17 team that is participating in the CONCACAF under-17 qualifying tournament. Jamal is also the team captain. The tournament is taking place in the Dominican Republic. And also part of that delegation from Nevis are Dr. Dwana Pemberton Jeffers, the team doctor, and Sienna Leader, the team manager. I believe that I should be able to end the press conference there with that amount of good news, but there's more to be said. So let me continue. Let me offer congratulations to Dr. Chanelka Maynard of Hanley's Road, Nevis. Dr. Maynard was one of 4 doctors who recently graduated from the Latin America School of Medicine in Cuba. We also congratulate Ms. Carrie Busu, who recently graduated from the University of Medical Sciences, Santiago, Cuba, with a degree in medical imaging and radiation physics. We welcome back both young ladies as they now seek to contribute to our healthcare services. A bit later, we will talk about a CT scan that we expect to receive shortly, but of course, we have invested in the meantime in personnel, and we welcome back both, but young Carrie Busu, who has recently graduated, will be helping us, of course, because her degree is in medical imaging and radiation physics. We're also pleased to announce that the 2 MUA, Medical University of the Americas, NIA scholarship recipients for this year are Ms. Kyrie Maynard. She will be pursuing a degree in radiography, imaging, and Mr. Tianjai Williams, who will be pursuing a degree in occupational environmental health and safety. Both students will be studying at the University of the West Indies, and of course we wish them and all other students who are leaving all the very best. Let me also indicate that the Ministry of Health continues in its efforts to increase the capacity of staff at the various facilities across the island. We welcome the following workers: Joan Barrios, psychiatry nurse; Fernando Nunes, biomedical engineer; Ben Ray, nurse at the Flamboyant Nursing Home; Christina Carolino, nurse at the Alexandra Hospital; and Owen Daldulo, nurse at the Alexandra Hospital. As you know, we have been getting some nurses, male and female, who have been coming from the Philippines to assist us, and we welcome this new cohort of nurses. We are also pleased to inform that the arrival of the CT scan enclosure for the 128-slice CT scanner, generous donation to the people of Nevis from the Patrick and Lena Drahi Foundation. The suppliers, technicians, along with the local contractors, have set up the enclosure in preparation for the arrival of the machine, which is expected in country very shortly. Let me, while I am saying thanks and congratulations, acknowledge the recent significant donation of medical supplies from Mr. Troy Antonio Sadio of New York and Ms. Janet Maynard of Canada. Let me rephrase that. Mr. Troy Antonio Sadio of Nevis and Ms. Janet Maynard of Nevis. Troy lives in New York and Janet lives in Canada. The supplies will be shared among the hospital, the Flamboyant Nursing Home, and the community health centers. We, of course, remain grateful to locals in the diaspora who continue to contribute to our healthcare system. The Department of Gender Affairs hosted its first ever Agripreneur Conference for women and girls interested in the agricultural industry. The conference was a collaborative effort between the Department and Ministry of Agriculture, and it targeted Sustainable Development Goals 1, no poverty; 3, good health; 13, climate action; and 15, life on land. I would want to congratulate the Department of Gender Affairs for this event, and of course the Department and Ministry of Agriculture. We continue to push agriculture as a viable solution, a viable aspect of our continued thrust at economic diversification on the island, But also, of course, they thrust to feed ourselves and have greater food security on Nevis. I have seen complaints about the increasing cost of food in the supermarkets, and the truth is that there's very little that we can do to control the cost of imported food. What we can do is try, each and every one of us, to grow more of what we eat and eat more of what we grow. And so I congratulate the Department of Gender Affairs and the Department of Agriculture for this collaborative effort aimed at women and girls. One last announcement, and that is to say that the Alexandra Pharmacy Hospital has extended its opening hours. It will now be open from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. in order to assist all of those who need the services of the pharmacy at the hospital. Now to some announcements. I said I had some big announcements, so here we go. Announcement number one. After a 2-year hiatus due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I am pleased to announce that the Nevis Island Administration this year is reintroducing our National Heroes Day concert. The National Heroes Day concert was conceptualized as an effort to bring our people together. It is intended to be uplifting. We have emphasized that we only want conscious artists to perform there. And the idea really is to bring family and friends together as we celebrate our national heroes and the platform that they would have built on which we all now stand. This event will be on National Heroes Day, Friday, September 16th. It will be hosted at our brand new Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park. It starts at 7 a.m. and we hope it will run until 3 a.m. The admission is the whopping price of free, so there's no charge to attend this Freedom concert. And who will be the headline acts? The headline acts will be Morgan Heritage, a band that is well known to us all. We will have Freddie McGregor, who is also well known to us all. His son, Chino McGregor, that is the son of Freddie McGregor, and a young man called Jamil, who I confess I'm not familiar with, but I'm told is quite popular. We also have some local acts. We have out of St. Kitts, Infamous. We have the Grandmasters Band out of St. Kitts, and we have the Greenhouse Band out of Nevis. We have Selector Bobby and Toby, and Ecstasy Sounds featuring DJ Woodis. Is he still called Woodis? He was called himself the other day Mr. CCM, but DJ Woodis. And that is going to be the National Heroes concert. We are inviting you to wear your national colors and come to represent your national heroes and to give honor and respect where it is due, but also to come out and have an enjoyable time with your families as we try to bring the island together. There are many things that we find divisive, and there are many things about our culture and our community which divide us. This is an opportunity for us to bring our people together. And so we invite everyone from Nevis and St. Kitts to come out to this concert at the Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park. It will be on Friday 16th. Admission is free. Just bring your best behavior, and we are asking you to dress in national colors. We celebrate our national heroes, and again, our headline acts are Morgan Heritage, Freddie McGregor, Chino McGregor, Jamil. Our local acts are Infamous, Grandmasters Band, and Greenhouse Band, and we will be entertained also by Selector Bobby and Toby and Ecstasy Sounds featuring Woodis. Woodis will be hosting this event, and so that's my first major announcement for the morning, that the Heroes concert is well and truly back. Let me look at some updates from Public Works. The Butlers Road project continues. I'm pleased to say that we're making great progress there, and a lot of the paving is already being done there. We will hope the people of Butlers who have been patient with us that we'll be out of Butlers soon. The Bath Road project is also continuing apace, and during the course of this week, I'm advised that some drainage works will be done in the area of the Bath village known as the Mud. And that's an area, as we know, that we have had difficulties in the past with water accumulating. So we'll solve that problem. Work on the reconstruction of the Methodist stone wall continues, and additional works are being done in the area of the Maud Cross Preparatory School to ensure greater safety for students, staff, and of course for parents who are dropping off their children to school. Incidentally, let me just speak for a moment on the road projects that the government is doing. This government has taken the view that our people are competent and capable to undertake road projects on behalf of our people. As I like to say, we're building Nevis by us and for us. This is a departure from the practice that we saw in the past, where all major civil works were contracted out to foreign companies. We have invested in our own people, and we are confident that they have the ability, and we just ask you to look at the quality of roads, whether it's in Brownhill or Braziers or Shaw's Road or Hanley's Road, and you get a sense of what we are able to do and what our local engineers and public works. To support public works, we have invested in considerable pieces of equipment, such as a new paver and other equipment that will allow public works to better execute projects. And so our policy is to use the public works. We turn to other private companies when public works doesn't have the capacity because they're stretched. And so currently, public works is engaged with Butlers and they are engaged with Bath as two major projects. And so we are currently finalizing discussions where we hope to engage Surrey Paving to undertake the Island Main Road project from Cliff Dwellers over to the area of ex-Petrol, I think. That is the extent of roadway. That is the last bit of Island Main Road that is in poor condition. And so we would want the people in that area to understand that we'll be shortly starting that project, and we're asking, of course, motorists for their patience as we try to improve the infrastructure on the island of Nevis. The reason we're using Surrey is, as I said, because our Public Works Department is currently engaged with two major projects, and it would be impossible for them to undertake that Island Main Road project as well. And so we look forward very much to that kicking off very shortly, and we thank all of those who are involved with trying to make that project happen. I would hope that by the next press conference I'd have more to say on that. However, I want to say to our residents that this government recognizes that in some of the road projects that we undertake, we are forced to interfere with people's boundaries. In some instances, in fact, we take in some people's land. So sometimes we have to take land from individuals who adjoin the roads as we try to widen the carriageway, try to widen the roadway. And we have developed a strategy that has worked thus far. And that is, instead of seeking to enter protracted negotiations with homeowners to pay them for the bit of land that we take, we have ordinarily said, you know what, let us put up a fence for you. And so where you see concrete walls that have been built in the various communities where we have done roads, it is because that is our way of compensating persons whose land we have interfered with. That is, if you will, the government's way of paying them for the land and for the interference with their boundary. Part of our policy is that we use persons in those communities to build those walls. And so if you're going to Bath Village now, you would find that it is largely people from Bath, contractors I mean from Bath, who are building those walls. I want, however, our residents to be clear that the policy when we're doing roads in the communities is not just to build walls for everyone. Because I understand that in all the communities that we are doing roads at the moment, there are some people who naturally are saying, well, since you're here, build my wall for me too. That really we're doing walls and improving properties that we interfered with. Properties that we had to take some of the people's land or otherwise interfere with their boundary. Those are the properties that we are seeking to compensate by way of constructing a wall for them to fence their property. So I just want to make that clear, that the policy has been consistent across the island. That's what we did in Hanley's Road, and that's what we did in Brownhill, and that's what we're doing everywhere else. There are some people who say, oh, but you're fixing a wall and nobody even lived there, or that property is an abandoned property. And my answer simply is that even though that is the case, once we interfere with the people's property, once we take part of their land, it has been our policy to compensate them. And I keep emphasizing that word. because if nothing was done to your property, then there is no need for compensation. So we are putting up walls where we have troubled people's property. That is the rule of thumb, and I wanted to make that very clear, that we assist where we can, but on the construction, that is how we have operated, and it has worked quite well. Let me also indicate from Public Works that we are currently overseeing a long-awaited fencing at Government House. That, as you know, is the official residence of the Deputy Governor General. We have done half of the fence along the western side, has already been completed, and we're working hard to get that done, overseeing the work there through a local contractor. We are also proud to announce that the department is overseeing the housing shed for the fire tender at the Newcastle Airport, the Vansham International Airport, forgive me. Construction has commenced on that already, and we know that there was some concern about the fire tender at that facility. There is a fire tender, we advised, on St. Kitts that is to be sent over, and that fire tender will be housed there. Let me make my announcement number 2 now, another major announcement. We would have come some time ago and would have promised to our non-established workers that we would have some relief for them on effective the 1st of September. Well, as you know, we are on the eve of the 1st of September. We are almost to the 1st of September. And so I'm very pleased to all of our non-established workers to announce that we are on track and will be rolling out that non-established retirement package for the 1st of September as we committed to. It is what I call a commitment made and a commitment that we will keep. I want to thank Permanent Secretary who is here, P.S. Wakely Daniel. He led the team that would have engaged with our non-established workers and would have put this together. I want to thank the other members of the team, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Works and Labor, Dr. Ernie Stapleton, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Colin Dorr, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Human Resources, the Department of Human Resources, Mr. Edson Elliott, and, of course, the local head of Social Security here in Nevis, Mr. Gary Liebert, whom we know has vast years of experience in the Labor Department and working with workers. I'm not sure if that's good English, but working with workers. So I want to thank them. They would have undertaken a Herculean task. I am advised by them in their last update to me that they would have convened some 3 or thereabouts town hall meetings with the non-established workers, different groups of non-established workers, to explain to them what was proposed and to get their feedback. And each time we went back to the drawing board to ensure that we were able to come up with something that we feel is workable. If I can give a short synopsis of the scheme will of course be explained to the non-established workers. They're the ones whom it benefits. But let me give a short synopsis. The policy will apply to workers who retire at the age of 62, provided that the employee would have served 10 continuous years in the public service. If the employee resigns after at least 10 years of continuous service, he or she will receive a gratuity only. If the employee resigns after 15 years of continuous service, he or she will receive a gratuity upon resignation and receive a pension when he or she reaches age 62. Where an employee becomes permanently incapacitated and unable to engage in gainful employment, he or she may retire and receive his or her benefits from the retirement scheme. Where an employee dies in the course of his or her employment, after at least 10 continuous years of service, the beneficiaries of his or her estate will receive his or her gratuity only. Non-established workers who are already in the public service and cannot achieve 10 continuous years of service before reaching the age of 62 will be given a compassion gratuity. That's the language that I'm told we're using. Non-established workers will continue to receive their holiday pay, but the honorarium, which would normally be paid in December of each year, will be discontinued effective the 1st of January 2023. The maximum number of years for retirement calculation will be 400 months, or 33 1/3 years. So that is my second major announcement. Good news for the NE workers that relief has finally come and a comprehensive policy has been put in place for them, and that will be explained more closely to them so that they are aware of what benefits they will now receive. I believe that that is a huge step forward for the island of Nevis, and I am proud as Premier of Nevis that my government has been able to deliver on this particular commitment to our NE workers. Of course, we await to see what will happen on our sister island of St. Kitts, and at some point, we look forward to perhaps aligning ourselves with what is proposed there. But we could not continue to wait, and as we indicated at the time, you recall, of the salary increases, we indicated that we would be doing something on September 1st for the NE workers, and we have worked over the past 3 months under the leadership of P.S. Daniel to make this happen. And again, I want to thank that team that worked really well to bring this to fruition. Some more updates. The Ministry of Tourism and the Nevis Tourism Authority, we want to announce that the Caribbean Premier League, which is being held in St. Kitts from August 31st, the Nevis Tourism Authority is once again this year proud sponsor of the St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots. Through the sponsorship of the St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots team, the Nevis Naturally branding will be seen by millions of viewers around the world. Video clips and images of the destination will also be shown at intervals during the live digital stream and TV airings. Over the period of Culturama 2022, the Nevis Tourism Authority hosted 2 of its Nevis tourism ambassadors, namely Ava Stritt and Nikiva Stapleton. While on Nevis, Ava Stritt focused on wellness and had the opportunity to share Nevis's wellness offers to her thousands of followers. On the other hand, Nikiva fully participated in our annual Culturama events and had the opportunity to host a modeling training session with some of our senior pageant contestants. She produced a number of social media reels which she posted to her Instagram account. And I know Nikiva well, and I believe that I ought to mention that she and I were in the Juve together coming down the road in the long jam from Gingerland. It was good exercise. She was dancing, I was walking, but it was good exercise. Let me also mention that Miss Kalia Huggins Simmons, the winner of the Bank of Nevis Tourism Youth Congress, which was held during Exposition Nevis in May, is currently preparing to travel to the Cayman Islands, where she will represent Nevis in the 2022 Regional Tourism Youth Congress hosted by the Caribbean Tourism Organization, CTO. We, of course, wish our junior minister, Kalia, all the best as she represents the island of Nevis. Let me switch quickly to the Department of Agriculture. The Department of Agriculture is making an urgent appeal, and that is to our animal farmers to take control of their animals. There's been a high incidence of damages to crop farmers over the past months, and also road accidents involving animals. We need, ladies and gentlemen, to find a happy medium. We want to encourage food security. It means that we want to encourage more animal farming. But we want our animal farmers to understand that they have a responsibility. They cannot simply open their pens in the morning and set their animals loose onto the roads. Even in Charlestown, you see goat and sheep. That is not the way to go. And it is unhelpful, and it creates unnecessary friction in the community. I am asking our animal farmers to control their animals. If it's a question of land and land availability, come in and have a conversation with us. Let us see what we can do. But this practice of simply opening your pens in the morning and leaving your animals to roam the streets, the highways and byways of Nevis is unhelpful. It's causing damage to other people's property, causing damage to people's crops and ornamental plants, and it's causing accidents on our roads. I'm sure all of you see carcasses of animals from time to time on our roads because some car collided with a goat or sheep, as the case may be. So we are appealing, please, to our animal farmers to take control of their animals. I believe that I will leave the appeal there for now before we consider other measures, but to say that we cannot continue this way. We must look out for each other. And whilst you're an animal farmer and we encourage what you do, we support what you do, you also have to be responsible with what you do. We will be this week, through the Department of Agriculture, holding a meeting for all poultry farmers and potential poultry farmers in Nevis. We want to establish a poultry association and to look at ways to propel the industry. I believe the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, as a energizer bunny in agriculture, he has said in the past that we intend to establish a broiler industry. And all that means is that we intend to start to produce chicken for consumption, local chicken. And so this is a first step, to bring persons who are interested together. You remember I said that agriculture is for us a significant part of our economic diversification thrust. It's a significant part of feeding ourselves. Well, the poultry industry is one such innovation that we intend to introduce. And so all who are interested, please get in touch with the Agricultural Department for more information. They want to put a poultry association together. The Department of Marine Resources wishes to advise all fishers to pay special attention to the weather bulletins. We know we're into the hurricane season, and we're urging not just fishers, but all of us to pay attention to the weather bulletins and to prepare ourselves. It is better to be prepared and not need it than to be caught unprepared. So let us pay attention. I know there's some people, particularly young people, tell me they don't listen to radio. They don't pay attention. I'm asking you please to pay attention. As we like to say, the life you save might be your own. So let us pay attention. Let us ensure that we pay attention to the bulletins as they come forward. Now, within the next month, piglets will be available for sale at the Madden Stock Farm. Piglets simply means small pigs, right? So, please indicate your interest to the Veterinary and Livestock Division at Prospect Estate. Again, part of our trust. And I notice when I say piglets, there's my good friend here who's Rasta, he bowed his head, you know. He said, no pig for him. So, I don't know if you'll engage in the poultry either. So no pig, no poultry, I don't understand. But anyway, for those who are the plant-based diet, we're also encouraging crop farming as well. So, get in touch if you're interested in of course, making a purchase of piglets. The Nevis Fishermen's Marketing and Supply Cooperative is saying that they also now have available shrimp, calamari, mussels, and crayfish. So for those who want to shop there, they are quite proud to announce that they've expanded the range of products that they're offering, and you can now buy shrimp, calamari, mussels, and crayfish at the Nevis Fishermen's Marketing and Supply Cooperative. Rotisserie chicken, those are available at our abattoir on a weekly basis, and we ask people to support, place their orders by Wednesday. Now, another important appeal to dog owners. We are asking dog owners to keep their dogs under proper control. There have been far too many reports recently of dog attacks on animals over the last few months, causing animal farmers to suffer great economic loss. See where I started to ask the animal farmers to be responsible? I'm now asking the dog owners to be responsible. We all live in Nevis, and we all must find ways to live together. Same way I'm asking you not to just let your animals out your pen to roam around the neighborhoods. I'm asking those who own dogs not to allow their dogs to escape their property in order to go all around and to create havoc. Dogs are not only attacking animals. We have had, of course, some instances of dogs attacking people as well. And so I appeal, please, to our dog owners to do the right thing in that regard. Now, I did say I had 4 announcements, so let me find announcement number 3. Announcement number 3. Members of the press, ladies and gentlemen who are listening, we have had over the past year or so quite a debate in our country about the fuel surcharge. The fuel surcharge is to allow NEVLEC to recover the cost of fuel in order to pay for fuel used in the production of electricity. And the price paid by NEVLEC for fuel is the main driver of the fuel surcharge. Now let me take you down memory lane for a moment. The fuel surcharge, that is adding to the customer's bills an additional amount which covers not only their consumption but the cost of fuel, was introduced somewhere around 2005. It was a CCM-led government at the time. But at that time, it was placed only on the commercial users. So only the business houses paid the fuel surcharge. A new government, the NRP-led administration, took over in 2006. And they expanded the fuel surcharge to everyone. That is, commercial houses and domestic users as well. There was a debate, I remember, around that time, because there was a view that if the fuel surcharge was passed to the commercial houses, the Rams and the Superfoods, well, Superfoods is no longer there, the Rams and the Best Buys, the TDCs and the Hosfords, that the nature of business is such that they will in turn pass that cost on to their customers. And so the idea back then was that by not applying it to households, you were saving them from what we refer to as a double whammy. And how does this double whammy work? It simply means that if households are paying a fuel surcharge, they have to pay it. So you have to pay it in your home in Gingerland, Cox, wherever you may be. But when you put it on the commercial houses, they also pass it on to you again, because they pass it on in terms of higher prices at the supermarket or higher prices in the business. But that has been the policy since it was changed by the then government, the NRP-led government, after it took office in 2006. And we have been back and forth on this fuel surcharge issue since then. There are times when fuel prices are moderate that we don't bother too much with it because it is not as significant. But since early 2021, and exacerbated considerably since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which has disrupted supplies of shipping generally, but also disrupted the flow of oil on the world markets, we have seen some dramatic increases in the cost of fuel. Remember, as I said, that the fuel surcharge is designed to recover the cost of fuel used in the production of electricity. And it is the main driver of the fuel cost that we bear, the price of electricity that we bear. So let me give the press and members of the public some indication of how the price has escalated. In June of 2021, the average price per imperial gallon of diesel to NEVLEC was $6.87. That's EC dollars. In June of 2021, the average price per imperial gallon of diesel to NEVLEC was $6.87. By July of 2022, that is a year and 1 month later, that same price of 1 imperial gallon of diesel is now $14.86. So in 1 year, the price to NEVLEC of diesel has moved from $6.87 per gallon to $14.86 per gallon. That is well over 100% in terms of the increase of diesel. Now, we don't produce diesel. We have no control over the price of oil. We are buffeted back and forth depending on whether it goes up or down. It is one of those things that the economists refer to as an exogenous shock. So, what can we do here on the island of Nevis? It has been a matter of great thought and discussion in the cabinet. We came up in June, I think it was, with a plan which was to make a total of $1.75 million available to NEVLEC from the NIA. And 1.25 of that was intended to be a direct subsidy. And the way that NEVLEC decided to deal with it was to cap the fuel surcharge. That is, they would not go beyond the 65 cents. Now, the fuel surcharge, the actual fuel surcharge, has risen to as high as 80 cents during that period. But we have capped it at 65 cents. But we live in the community. I pay electricity just like you pay electricity. And we recognize that despite our efforts to cap the fuel surcharge, our people are still struggling. It is a genuine concern that all of us have in terms of the cost of fuel. As a direct result of increases in the price of fuel, the calculated fuel surcharge has been increasing. NEVLEC itself has been making efforts to minimize the impact of the rise in fuel prices. Put differently, NEVLEC itself has been absorbing some of that increase. And since June of 2021, NEVLEC has subsidized customers to the tune of approximately $4 million. That is going back to June of 2021. So, well over a year now, NEVLEC has subsidized to the tune of about $4 million. And how did NEVLEC do that? NEVLEC did that by using a 6-month average. So rather than saying you pay the fuel surcharge, whatever it calculates at today, NEVLEC has been using an average. So clearly where the fuel surcharge has continued to increase, that average has provided a cushion, but it comes at a cost. And $4 million is what it has cost NEVLEC thus far. When the NIA, the cabinet, introduced this additional $1.25 million to subsidize, that is $1.25 million per month, we were able to cap the fuel surcharge at 65 cents. But even then, it is still causing tremendous hardship to our people. We have been looking at it. We have been engaged in discussions with NEVLEC, with our technical team, with our people in finance, to see what could be done. Now let me give you some numbers. The total cost associated with the fuel surcharge for the latest month that we have, which was July of 2022, was $3.821 million. If all factors remain the same, including fuel prices, the cost for the next 12 months will be approximately $45.85 million. That is what we would expect if all things remain the same as they are today. We would be spending $45.85 million. It means that NEVLEC has to find that amount of money to keep the lights on, essentially. So, there are some good signs that for August, the fuel prices might be a bit lower than they were in July. But again, once this war continues to rage in Ukraine, we are not sure what is going to happen next. And all around the world, countries are forced to make contingency plans and arrangements to try and shield their people. The total cost of removing the fuel surcharge for the next year would be approximately $30 million. So if we have to remove the fuel surcharge from all consumers for the next year, that is the cost that we would anticipate having to pay. Therefore, that is the money that the government will have to find over the next year if we are to remove the surcharge entirely. And the question, of course, always is how do you pay for it? As a politician, as a minister, as a premier, I can come and I can promise most and many things. The fundamental question always is how is it going to be paid for? And if people are talking, making promises without telling you how it's going to be paid for, and that is what you call pie in the sky. You have to always determine how will we fund what is being proposed. So, we are taking some steps and have continued to take some steps to minimize the impact. We propose, this is now the announcement, to maintain a cap on the fuel surcharge at 65 cents for our commercial users, so that the TDCs, the Hosfords, the Rams, the other commercial persons, we will cap it at 65 cents. That is where it is now, and it has been, let me just confirm my data, it has been capped at that since the month of June, 65 cents. Problem was that our domestic users, the mom and pops all around here, is a single mother, she was also paying the fuel surcharge capped at 65 cents. Recall when I say that back in 2005, the fuel surcharge was never intended to apply to the domestic user, only the commercial user. So what we are seeking to do now is to reset. And so we have come up with a plan to eliminate the fuel surcharge for domestic users. How will we do that? Well, let me deal with it sequentially. We propose ultimately to eliminate the fuel surcharge for everyone. But in this first step, we will eliminate the fuel surcharge for residential customers only. The NIA will provide an additional $500,000 per month to NEVLEC. That will take, therefore, our payment for this subsidy per month to a total of $1.75 million. And the good people at NEVLEC are telling us that if we can give them $1.75 million per month, and the price of fuel, the actual surcharge remains on or about, 77 cents per kilowatt hour. That's what the actual surcharge was in the month of July. That they can reduce, with that subsidy, the fuel surcharge for residential customers to zero. And so that is what we propose to do. So the government, the cabinet, would have agonized over this for many weeks. And we would have realized that we tried at $1.25 million subsidy, and that despite the fact that that provided some relief, there was still some anxiety in the community. And so we've gone back, and we will be providing an additional $500,000, so a total now of $1.75 million per month to NEVLEC. And NEVLEC has indicated to us that that will allow them to remove the fuel surcharge from our residential customers. Now let me just emphasize that the commercial consumers will continue to pay the fuel surcharge. However, we will cap the fuel surcharge to them at 65 cents. So it means that they too will get some relief. That is the plan. Now, of course, the plan can go awry if fuel prices were to escalate exponentially going forward. But based on what we are seeing, that prices might have stabilized and or prices might actually be a little lower for August. The good people at NEVLEC, the technicians, are saying to us that this plan is doable. I want to emphasize, ladies and gentlemen, that we are a government that cares about our people. I know people say it all the time, it is standard language for politicians, but we demonstrate that we care. And oftentimes there is a lot of chatter, and we understand the chatter because we live in a robust democracy. Everybody has an opinion in St. Kitts and Nevis and are not shy to share it, and that is welcomed. But sometimes we can't respond because we don't yet have the plan. And I often say that to speak before you have a plan is really useless. People are looking to the government for leadership. People are looking to the government for relief. They're looking to the government for a plan. And so we sat down initially, came up with a plan. We realized that that plan has not worked entirely as we would like it. And why it didn't work entirely as we would like it is because we spread that subsidy across commercial and residential. So everybody got a break in terms of electricity. We are now saying that we are going to spread it for the residential. Let the single mother get the break, and let the commercial houses pay at a fixed rate of 65 cents. So they get a break too. But the significant break is really for the individuals in the homes all around the island. Going back to my theory that the expectation always is that the commercial houses will pass on any increased cost to their customers. Again, the policy that was in place prior, we feel, was causing some damage to the residential consumers because they were paying at home and they were paying again when they went to the supermarket or when they went to the pharmacy, as the case may be. So we are hopeful that this resetting will allow some relief. And certainly, I know people out there breathing a sigh of relief. I know the business community is going to complain, but I'm asking the business community to hold strain. We could not take it away from everyone. And so we felt that the people who most needed the relief would be the persons living in Jessops and Cotton Ground, in Hanley's Road and Brown Hill, in Cox and Barnscott, in Butlers and Brick Hill. We are trying to help the people in their homes keep the lights on. Now, this comes at a cost to the taxpayer. And who are the taxpayers? The same people. So we're encouraging persons to pay their electricity bill. Please. Because we need now to be able to collect whatever we can collect in order to offset the cost of generating electricity for our people. Now, I said that was the first step. But our ultimate goal is to eliminate the fuel surcharge entirely. In fact, our ultimate goal is to eliminate the generation of electricity from diesel fossil fuels entirely. And just last week, we had two consultants here provided courtesy of the Inter-American Development Bank and the CDB, who came to look at the wells that we have done, the geothermal wells in Hamilton. And we had a very good meeting with a company called Geothermics. And Geothermics, I was pleased when they said that, in their opinion, the island of Nevis has one of the best geothermal resources in the entire world. I can report that we are very close to closing the financing gap that we had been suffering from for all these years. Financing for the project is to be provided by the Caribbean Development Bank, and that includes something called a contingently recoverable grant for the drilling of the production and injection wells. We are hopeful that the drilling contractor for production and injection wells will be selected this year by December of 2022, which means that we should be able to begin actual work early in the new year. The reason why I mention this is because this is the ultimate goal. So I'm talking about a subsidy and the removal of the fuel surcharge from residential customers as an immediate step to provide some relief. I'm talking now about moving us entirely to geothermal energy as the ultimate step to eliminate altogether our dependence on oil, diesel, and fossil fuels. Put differently, once we've been able to achieve this, we couldn't care what the price of oil is because we wouldn't be using it. We would be using geothermal energy to generate electricity on the island of Nevis, and ultimately using geothermal energy to power our sister island of St. Kitts as well. In fact, let me say that I have engaged with our new Prime Minister, Dr. Drew. We have met formally, but we've also engaged on quite a few occasions on the telephone. And I am impressed thus far with his commitment to renewable energy. I have also engaged with Dr. Senator Joel Clark, whom he has put in charge of the thrust for renewable energy, and we look forward very much to working with the new federal government in order to bring renewable energy to people's switches in their homes, to move it from just talk to actually manifesting itself in cleaner, greener, and, of course, low-cost energy. To give you an idea, while we are here talking about 65 cents and 80 cents and all of that, geothermal energy we expect should come in at around 11 US cents. So 11 US cents is about what, 28, 29 cents EC. So you compare that to 80 cents, which is just the surcharge. That is not yet the consumption. So when you add the consumption onto that, you're probably up to well over $1 if you were to go the way that we're going now. And of course, we are buffeted by these exogenous shocks. If some country decides to invade another country tomorrow, if there's an incident, if OPEC decides that they want to artificially inflate the price of oil by restricting supply, all of these things are things that we would be subject to. So this approach, we feel, is a twofold approach. An interim step to provide immediate relief to our householders, and then the ultimate step is to provide relief to everyone. So I apologize to our business houses. They will have to tarry with us for a bit longer as we try to fix this situation. Let me go back, please, because I forgot an important bit of information. When I made the second announcement, big announcement, which was to do with the non-established workers, I neglected to mention to you that we anticipate that that will cost the government somewhere in the region of $2 million per year. And I always say that when we set policy and make announcements, we should give you an idea of cost. And so we anticipate. The reason I say anticipate is that we recognize that we don't yet have a clear indication of how many people will be leaving the service at any particular time. But we will be budgeting somewhere in the region of $500,000 for pensions and $1.5 million for gratuity each year. So we expect about $2 million. We hope it will be less, but that would be the budgeted cost. And again, I think that responsible leaders always give you an idea of cost when they give you a proposal. It brings me then to my, let me see what else I have. Ministry of Education. I'm pleased to say that schools, of course, restart in earnest next week. I believe that our teachers and leadership is already hard at work. We're going to be having some changes at the various schools, some new principals, new teachers, and we're asking, of course, those who are there to support the injection of new ideas and new talent as we try to move. I'm very pleased with the selection because I see some younger people getting the opportunity, particularly some young women, to lead the various schools, and I'm hopeful that they will form the core of the future. Many of you may know that we had many of our head teachers at our schools who are now retiring. They were at that age. So I'm happy to see some young, educated persons dedicated to the task at hand who are stepping up. And so I want to commend the Junior Minister, Troy Liebert, and his team, particularly his prominent secretary, Mr. Barrett, and his PO, Ms. Claxton, for the exceptional job that they and their respective teams have been doing in relation to getting us ready for our school year. To show them the appreciation, as always, the Ministry of Education took them on a trip to St. Kitts, I'm told. Principals, deputy principals of all the schools, all the childhood supervisors, they went on a field trip to St. Kitts. I'm told they went all over, Carmel, Batik, Romney Manor, Echo Park, all over. And then they had lunch, and they had a wonderful time. The idea really is just to say thank you. And I wanted to reaffirm our thanks to them for their commitment. My final announcement, I did say 4. So this is the final one. I'm very pleased to announce that in our continued thrust for greater water security and resilience, that we will be shortly piloting a proposed solar desalination plant on the island of Nevis. The expected yield is 3,400 gallons per hour. The overall investment that is being made there is somewhere in the region of $834,624. I believe that's US dollars. And the desal plant will be located on the ocean side in Butlers. Why desalination? is because, of course, we have relied all of our time in Nevis on drilling wells, groundwater. And we recognize that we have to, just as we try to diversify our economy, we have to diversify in terms of our sources of water. With difficulties with rainfall, particularly this year, you know, we've had long periods of drought. We are realizing that our aquifers are being stressed. There's too much pressure on our aquifers. And so we are piloting this particular proposal. Now, I feel particularly proud of this because I was involved in the diplomatic side in a previous life when I was Minister of Foreign Affairs with the United Arab Emirates in negotiating 2 desal plants, one for St. Kitts and one for Nevis. And the good thing about these plants is that they are solar powered. So, of course, the big problem with desalination that most people complain about is the cost of electricity, because the plant has to be run by electricity, and so the cost of electricity carries up the cost of the water that's produced. These plants are solar powered. So it's an experiment in a way to determine whether or not we could be sustainable with solar powered desal plants, because if that is the case, you recognize it solves our water problems overnight. Because while we may have limited groundwater, we have endless seawater. It's surrounded by ocean. So if we can position these plants around the coast, different points, it means that it really solves a huge part of our water problem on the island. So I think that was worthy of mention, that through the financing from the United Arab Emirates, both islands, St. Kitts and Nevis, will be getting the benefit of desalination plants, and that our program and our project on Nevis is proceeding apace, and we're hopeful that we will have that soon. I'm told that a company called Mascara, I think it's called, is a company that has been engaged to execute this particular project. Ladies and gentlemen, I will leave that there. I, of course, stand ready to answer any questions that you may have.
Good morning to all.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Premier.
Good morning to you.
Shamika Bajin of One Radio. Okay, you just spoke about the elimination of fuel surcharge for residential customers. When will that come into effect? I don't think that you gave a date. Also, we just had a federal election and there's a change in government. Are you, as Premier of Nevis, are you already seeing an ease or a better relationship with the Labour Party in St. Kitts, and also referencing the CBI program? I know that you mentioned that you spoke to the new Prime Minister, and you spoke with the commitment of renewable energy, but in terms of a relationship with the CBI program and moving forward, how is that relationship going? And members of the public are still a bit confused referencing masks. Due to the low count of COVID cases, should persons still be wearing masks? I know we have all heard of the new Prime Minister removing the travel restrictions pertaining to COVID, but please, can you shine some light on the wearing of masks? That's it for me for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Budgeon. On the wearing of masks, it is clear now that it's a matter of personal choice. I would encourage persons who are vulnerable, who find themselves in a vulnerable group, those who are not vaccinated, those who suffer from underlying conditions, to continue to wear their masks. But there's no more any mask mandate. That is, there is no longer a requirement by law that we wear masks. So it is really up to the individual, in my view. And if you're going into a crowded space where you're there for a prolonged period of time, it might make sense for you to wear your mask. For example, if you're in church, where you're sitting in a pew for an extended period of time, it might make sense. Other events where you are in close proximity to persons, it might make sense. But there's no longer a requirement. Now, some businesses still require that you have a mask, but that is an issue of that business's policy, not a mandate from the government anymore, because those mandates have now been removed. So it really is up to the individual businesses and the individuals themselves. So you find sometimes you go to a church, you go to a funeral service, as the case may be, some people choose to put on a mask, others are there maskless, but that is really their choice. So that's a question of personal choice, in my view, at this stage. You asked, forgive me, I made a few notes. You asked about the relationship with St. Kitts. It is early days yet. Truth is that the new Prime Minister has been in office for less than a month. I have been very optimistic about the engagement thus far. We met, I believe it was on the 19th of August, for just about an hour. It was cordial. It was very useful. We discussed the issues. I have written to him already outlining what the concerns of Nevis are as a priority for us. In fact, I would have written to him on the Tuesday, which was the first working day after the election. I think that would have been the 8th, I believe. The election was Friday the 5th, 9th. So I would have written to him on that day outlining those issues. We were able to discuss those. And on issues such as renewable energy, I've been impressed at the commitment that he has expressed to that, the fact that he has an expert in Dr. Joel Clark who's leading that effort. And so far I have found the Prime Minister to be very accessible. And as I said, I have had a number of telephone conversations with him since he has been Prime Minister. The relationship, I think, is one that is based on mutual respect. I wish him well. When he does well, I think we all do well. And I have indicated to him that the issues of Nevis must be a priority, that those be resolved, and I believe he has agreed. He has on the issue of CBI and the bettering of our relationship, he has proposed that we constitute a committee comprised of 3 individuals from Nevis and 3 from St. Kitts, and I will, with the grace of God, this week indicate to him who the membership of the committee from Nevis is likely to be, and he will then have his committee on St. Kitts. That is the members, and the hope would be that they would work together to look at some of the issues. For example, CBI, 500 million comes in, how much is spent for the program? Let's say 100 million, the 400 million is left, how is that distributed? I raised a number of other issues with him. For example, the single filing system that we now have for VAT. Many people don't know that a lot of companies in Nevis who are headquartered in St. Kitts, which are headquartered in St. Kitts, are not paying any VAT in Nevis. And the reason for that is we have a single filing system. So if you are a major company in St. Kitts and you open or have a branch or an operation in Nevis, you charge VAT in Nevis to the customers in Nevis, but that VAT is filed because there's a single filing system in Bastia, and we don't get any of that. So all of those issues, I think, need to be looked at and resolved. I feel that where there's goodwill and where there's a genuine effort to resolve issues, that they can be resolved. And I'm committed to working with Dr. Drew, our new Prime Minister. He's young. He doesn't come, as I have said, with any of the baggage of those who have preceded him. And I am hopeful that that would mean that he is able to have a fresh start and to reset the relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis and to reset the relationship between the peoples of these 2 islands. And so I look forward very much to working with him. And so my cautious position now is that it's early days yet, but the signs are very good that we can do business with the new Prime Minister. The fuel surcharge went in effect. Please forgive me. I was so excited about making these various announcements, but we should see the effect from the next cycle, next billing cycle. So that is the intention, that from the next billing cycle, our people will have some relief. And as I said, the intention is that the domestic users will no longer pay the fuel surcharge, and the commercial users will be capped at 65 cents.
Good morning, Premier. Glenn Bard from SK Newsline.
Good morning, Mr. Barth.
On the matter of constitutional reform, with the current situation that would be in Parliament now, with the new St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party in government, we've got CCM, PAM, and PLP. Perhaps one would say that now more than ever, there is an opportunity for constitutional reform. My question, therefore, is this. What areas of interest would Nevis like to see reformed in the Constitution? And secondly, what format of engagement do you want to occur in regards to the discussion on constitutional reform? My other questions, MSR Media. Now, this is what I will consider to be a very highly successful arrangement between the NIA and MSR Media. What I was unclear about over the past months, though, was, is there a financial arrangement between the NIA and MSR Media, or is there some other format of benefits that takes place for the new administration in this arrangement? My other question is, we are coming up now to the next local elections very shortly. What is the CCM party's vision, long-term vision for the development, economic development and growth of Nevis? What do you want to see happen on this island? Those are my questions for now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bart, for your questions, always provocative. The local elections will come when they will come. They're due by March of 2023. So we have a few months yet to talk about local elections. Our long-term vision is really to see a Nevis that is economically stable, which can provide growth and jobs for our people, where we protect our environment, and where we have growth that is sustainable. We have seen in other places where they have explosive growth followed by spectacular decline. And so we have been looking very carefully at the numbers, and we have seen, for example, I've reported from Social Security an incremental increase in jobs available, amount of wages. So we're moving in the right direction based on the last 2 quarters that we have seen from Social Security. What have we been doing is really, we have already been trying to lay the framework for that future that we are looking to. We were derailed by COVID, and for 2 years, the country went into paralysis like the rest of the world. And so I have said that I've been robbed of 2 years of my premiership. I know the opposition don't like me when I say so, but it's the truth, because we weren't really able to execute some of the plans that we would have had. We lost 2 years, but that is the nature of things. And of course, during COVID, our only priority was to keep our people safe. I think the record would suggest that we succeeded in relation to that particular initiative and that particular urgent priority. What do I say when I say we're laying the framework? We are preaching the language of diversification of our economy. We are not just preaching it, we are taking active steps to do so, agriculture being a significant part. Not agriculture in the sense of becoming a juggernaut in terms of export, because we are a small island with small land space. But what we are advocating is greater use of technology, and that is why you see shade houses and hydroponics popping up around the island, with the active involvement and investment by the government in many instances. We are seeing an investment by us in marketing facilities, the Lionston Perry facility, for example, to store produce, to ensure that produce produced by our farmers have a longer shelf life, because we couldn't in conscience ask farmers to produce more for them just to have more spoilage. We are now actively looking for markets for export. And in fact, I had an interesting call on my way here from a former classmate of mine who indicated that they wanted melons in the Virgin Islands, and they were asking if we had the capacity to supply. So we're exploring those markets to say to our farmers that farming, agriculture is a viable business. When I grew up, and perhaps when you grew up as well, we used to do what we call subsistence farming. People farmed largely to get something to eat and to sell a little at the market if necessary. But we can't survive without food. And what has happened over the years is that our people have been persuaded to import food. And we're seeing the downfall of that now, because we can't control the prices of that food that we're getting in Miami. When I spoke to the supermarket owners, I met with Best Buy, Rams, and Value Mart, and all of them said that despite our best efforts here as a government to take off the duties and take off the customs service charge and all that, that it would not make a difference, because every week that they ordered a container from Miami, the price went up. And in the case of something like eggs, they said it had jumped almost, well, not almost, more than 100%. So, the only answer, Mr. Bard, is for us to grow more. We are 13,500 people or thereabouts. I think we can feed ourselves in relation to our staple crops. I saw an article 2 days ago where they have done some research, and they're looking at staple crops that will be the staple of the future, and the impact that climate change is going to have on some of the crops that are staple crops now. So what are those staples now? Wheat, rice, corn. Those are some of the staples. These wheat, rice, and corn feed the majority of people around the world. And I found the conclusions of that study interesting. That those crops, they said, were very vulnerable to climate change. But the crop that they found was most adaptable, the crop that they found was most resilient to climate change, was breadfruit. And that study concluded that breadfruit could provide an alternative in terms of food security in a changing environment, physical environment, in terms of hotter climates. And they pointed out that breadfruit could be grown in sub-Saharan Africa, it can be grown around the world. In fact, it can be grown in climates and in places which were more susceptible. And it made me think, because I said breadfruit. We have breadfruit here that nobody pays any attention to. When I was a boy, Rollins and places like that were full with breadfruit. But here are people doing studies now, looking 20, 30 years down the road, and are saying that breadfruit, that as we say colloquially here, banging dog, is something that could sustain us. And so I say that to say that agriculture, which all of us used to frown on, when we went into the COVID-19 pandemic, we as a government said it has to be part now, a critical part of what we do going forward in terms of diversification. That is why we have invested in the 35-acre fruit orchard at Newcastle. Incidentally, Minister Alexis Jeffers, our Minister of Agriculture, has indicated that they're about to clear an additional 40 acres to plant more coconuts and more fruits there. We hope that that will become a major source of food for Nevis. We have incentivized our farmers to do more. We have built the Lawrencetown Perry facility, as I said, for greater storage. We are now actively seeking out markets in St. Kitts and outside for our produce. We have and I continue to try to help our animal farmers to find them land so that they can produce meat. We continue to work with our fishers to encourage them to fish, but to do so sustainably and responsibly. And we are looking now to the future in terms of technology, but also in terms of the poultry industry that I would have mentioned, where we're taking active steps and would hope to launch that very soon. So that's an area we think will provide jobs, it will provide meaningful economic diversification, and it will provide, has the potential to provide the impetus forward in terms of growing the economy. Energy, as you would have heard, is a major part of the Nevis of the future. We have to harness this geothermal energy. We cannot continue to hear that it is one of the best resources in the world and we're still importing diesel. We have to harness it, and we feel now that we have solved, after years of trying, the jigsaw of financing. And we want to thank the CDB for stepping up in a significant way, for sending their people and for their commitment to this project. In fact, they're telling us that this project is critical not only for Nevis and St. Kitts, but for the rest of the region. Because if this project succeeds, it will have a cascading effect on other projects in the region, because this, they say, is the best project, meaning it is the most advanced and most promising project of them all. So if this can succeed, then there's a renewed impetus for Montserrat, for Dominica, for St. Lucia, for other islands that are looking at geothermal as well. So my vision is a Nevis that is the best small island in the world, where our people have the highest standard of living, where we can improve our economic offering, we can expand and diversify our economy, but we can also offer our people good quality of life and improve what they need for that in terms of healthcare and the like. So we will be talking about that in the campaign, whenever that campaign comes, and we will be moving forward accordingly. MSR Media, we have made it clear that yes, there is a financial arrangement with MSR. I believe the number is $150,000, if memory serves, 150,000 US dollars, that the NIA contributes. We have contributed that in terms of hotel and accommodation. The deal we worked out, remember this was in the height of COVID. So we said to them, listen, we prefer to pay this money to the hotels, because our calculation was the hotels would then have to employ people. So that's one of the ways that we try to keep our hotel sector going. And so you have some place like Hamilton Resorts, for example, has been booked out by MSR for what, 2 years now almost? So there are certain properties that have benefited tremendously from this arrangement, because what we do is we pay the hotel arrangements for the stars and for the people who come in. And by doing so, we inject money directly into the hotel sector, allow the hotel workers to find work, and of course MSR does their movies, and their movies lead to considerable publicity for the island and jobs that are created on the island as well. I think at this point they say that they have about 60 or 65 employees, and so not huge, but certainly a start, because these were 65 people who knew nothing about the movie business 2 years ago, and now they're involved very much in the movie business. So they are now filming their 7th film on Nevis, an action film starring Michael Jai White, an African-American action actor, and they, I believe, said that they were filming for about a month to 6 weeks. And thereafter, I'm told, they will start another film sometime in November. So MSR continues to be a solid partner for us, and we think that the partnership that we forged with them has borne spectacular fruit. I have said so publicly, but I was contacted by a dear friend of mine in Georgia, in the United States, who said that her niece and her sister were traveling to Las Vegas, and one of the movies that was showing on Delta Airlines was A Week in Paradise, I think it's called, that was filmed here. So on the plane, they were able to look at this film filmed here, which had all these spectacular views of Nevis. I think that type of exposure for the island and for the wider federation is incalculable. The value of that, we couldn't afford to pay for it. Constitutional reform, he says CCM, PAM, and PLP are in the opposition. I almost thought you would say unity is back together again, but this time on the opposition benches. That's intended to be a light moment, not a headline. But yeah, this is an opportunity for constitutional reform. It would, however, require that we work together, because the Labour Party, even though it won 6 of 8 seats on St. Kitts, wasn't given a mandate to effect constitutional reform in the sense that it wasn't given enough seats to have the absolute majority that is required. So if, for example, on some matters a 2/3 majority is required, then they will find that they will need the support from the opposition benches. What would my priorities be? I think that our Constitution has shown some limitations in recent years. The unfortunate occurrence, and I'm trying to be temperate in my language, of a Governor General refusing to disappoint a Prime Minister at the request of the majority of the Parliament but at the same time agreeing that that Prime Minister should disappoint the majority of the Parliament, I think that that's a travesty. And it's things like those, in my view, that need to be corrected, so that functionaries can't hide behind saying, well, nothing explicit is there, so therefore I can't act. I think that we need to make it clear that any Prime Minister or Premier can be recalled, because if they are in that position and have that title solely on the basis that the majority of elected members support them, then if that support is lost, then that title must also be lost, because it means you are reduced to an ordinary member of cabinet, an ordinary member of parliament, just like everybody else. Remember, unlike other systems, take the United States where people run for president, there's nobody here running for premier or running for prime minister. Mark Brantley in the local election runs in number 2, St. John's. If I'm successful, and if enough members from CCM are successful, and they say to the Governor General that we support Mark Brantley to be the premier, then that is how I become premier. But nobody on this island votes for a premier. Nobody in Sink is voted for a prime minister. The people in number 7 voted for Dr. Timothy Harris as their representative. The rest of us who were elected then said that he would be the prime minister. So it follows, to my mind, logically, that if we said that he would be the prime minister, and then we went back at some point and said we changed our mind, and he no longer enjoys that majority, then I cannot understand why it would be said that the Governor General could not act. And then to add sort of salt to the wound, the person who had lost that support of the majority was still able to go to the Governor General and say, you know what, let me fire the whole majority. And that is why we had a farcical situation in the country for 3 months. We had a cabinet of 3. Well, 3 elected and a couple others. Didn't make sense. Flies in the face of democracy. Means that 8 constituents around this country, and all the people who voted for those 8 representatives, had no representation in the cabinet. And the parliament, having been dissolved, had no representation in the parliament either. Those are things I think that need to be corrected. And since some pretend that they don't understand, we must correct them with definitive statements as to what applies. Look, for example, and I will end here, at the motion of no confidence. When a previous motion was filed by me against the then Douglas-led federal government, Denzel Douglas-led federal government, it was in abeyance for what, 23 months or something like that? Why? Because people who should know better said there was nothing written down as to a time frame in which, mind, the practice is clear. A motion of confidence is the most important motion that can come because it can decide whether the government continues. But that was held in abeyance for all that time. And you had the Speaker and others who should know better, who pretended they did not know better. So we now had to go and pass a law to say that the motion must be heard within 21 days. And that is why when this motion was filed, the Speaker had to bring the motion because the law prescribed a period of time within which it must be brought. And so some may argue that in developed democracies, you look at what has been happening in the UK, for example, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, lost the support of the majority. Now, is England being forced to go through a new election? No. What they're going to do in England is they're going to meet and they're going to determine a new leader, and that new leader will become the new Prime Minister. That's what's going to happen. But here you had a situation where a man who lost the support of the majority was able to fire the majority, dissolve the parliament, and then say, you know what, I'm going to call an election in the heart of Culturama when I'm ready. Made some monumental decisions during that 3-month kangaroo cabinet, as I call it. People got pardoned who had committed heinous crimes. Prison what the number was, $2.5 billion prison was started. Bar State High School was started. And all these big decisions were acted upon in circumstances where 8 of the constituencies in our country were locked out and standing outside. These things can't be allowed to happen again. And I think that we must learn from these difficult periods and correct them. And one of the things that I am going to be pushing for is that there must be a mechanism where the majority no longer supports a particular individual as prime minister. That individual cannot then hold the country hostage. Because that's really what happened here, Mr. Bad. You had one man say, if I can't have it, I'm going to mash it up. That really is what it came down to. I'm going to dissolve, I'm going to fire, I'm going to, like a raging bull, because I can't have it. The country cannot be the fiefdom of any one individual. We don't have pharaohs here and kings. We have representatives of people. And there's no difference between Mark Brantley and Timothy Harris or Denzel Douglas in the sense of all of us were elected by people in a constituency to go into parliament to represent them. And if any of us is elevated because of the support of others who are equally elected, then I think we ought to respect that process. And when those people remove their support from us, it means that the platform on which we stand and the basis on which we have title of Premier and Prime Minister, leader of the opposition, whatever they may be, that platform disappears. And so I think that that now needs to be made pellucid, since, as I say, some pretend they don't understand how these things are supposed to work. Are there any other questions for me?
Good morning all. I'm Beyond Hanley representing BHC Media. Mr. Premier, can you let us know the job role of the Speaker of the House, the Honorable Michael Perkins, the job role he has with the Nevis Island administration? Question number 2, having won all 3 seats during the last federal elections, the CCM now make up the majority of the parliamentarians on the opposition benches. Question is, do you intend to take up the role of leader of the opposition, and how do you intend to use this role in order to negotiate for Nevis's fair share? Question number 3, just to follow up with my colleague, Mr. Bart, in regards to your big idea for the overall development of Nevis. Your response sounds good, but however, do you have anything written on paper outlining that plan going forward? For example, I could go online now and go on the African Union website, and they would have a 50-year plan for the development of Africa. And also in Namibia, in Africa, who has the best roads, they have a 50-year road plan on their government website. Is there anything written on paper to show your big idea, your plan for Nevis moving forward? Final question, also to follow up with my colleague, Ms. Budgen, in regards to your plan to remove the fuel surcharge. She asked when exactly this will be. My question to follow up with that is, will you remove the fuel surcharge before or after the next Nevis local elections? Thank you.
Well, Mr. Hanley, thank you for your question. I did try to answer Ms. Budgen and said the next billing cycle. I think we get bills every month. So this is now the end of August, so we would expect that the fuel surcharge removal that we're speaking about here will kick in the month of September. The election, let me remind you, forgive me, let me remind you, Mr. Hanley, is not due until March of 2023. And I know that some of us are getting a little excited about elections. Elections are always exciting times, but the election is due in March of 2023. And by my tally, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. That's 8 months away. So, short answer is that we would have relief in terms of the fuel surcharge long before an election is due. All right? When the election is actually held, that will be a matter, of course, for discussion with colleagues, and we'll make that determination. But the fuel surcharge relief that we have indicated will go into effect from the next billing cycle. An idea for the overall development of Nevis, there is no 50-year plan, or 20-year plan for that matter that we would have looked at. I believe, however, your question is an excellent one, because we need to develop such a plan. And that is not just a CCM notion. I think that the island as a whole, both parties need to get together. The beauty about these plans, when they've been developed for other countries, China has something similar, I'm told, is that there's the buy-in from everyone. Why is it important for the buy-in? Let us use the just concluded federal election. Dr. Harris and Team Unity said that they were going to build a new Bastia High School at a particular location. There was no buy-in from the Labour Party. So now the people have said we want a Labour government. They said the first thing they said, we're abandoning that and we're going back to the old location for the high school. So if we had developed a 50-year plan without the buy-in of everyone, and part of that 50-year plan was a new Bastia High School in this new location, you realize what that would have led to. The 50-year plan might include energy, sustainability. So you say, I'm going to go in terms of renewable. But if the other side doesn't buy into that, and they say, no, we believe that diesel is the way to go. It is faster, it is known, there's no uncertainty about it. You run into difficulties as well. So we have not anywhere in the Caribbean developed that kind of plan. And so what we have, which is perhaps a deficiency, and that's why I say your question is an excellent one, because we end up with a situation where we go from cycle to cycle, 5-year cycle to 5-year cycle. And so what I will say to you is that our plans will be laid out in our manifesto, which is what voters look to determine what is this party going to do over the next 5 years if we give them the mandate, if we repose our trust and confidence in them. And that is where we hope that we will lay out some of the things that we want to do. Bearing in mind that elections are a contest of ideas. And sometimes you say you're going to build. We, for example, have committed that we want to open up the south coast of Nevis by building a road from Long Point and going over to Gingerland. Similar to, we feel, to how the Southeast Peninsula Road, Kennedy Simmons Highway, opened up the Southeast Peninsula, which I think is going to be the economic engine for St. Kitts for the foreseeable future. We have thousands of acres on the south coast, as you know, Mr. Hanley, which are undeveloped. No roads, no proper infrastructure, no water, no electricity. And we feel that that's the next big thing on the island, if we can open up that area for development. So we're looking at it. But if that view is not shared by the NRP as the main opposition party, or by the MRI, what do they call it? The MRM? MRM. Movement, yes. The Moral Restoration Movement, the MRM. So if it's not shared by the NRP or the MRM, it means that we have to be in office to do it, because if we're not in office, they say that's a foolish plan and they're not going to do it. So when we talk about planning long term, we really need the buy-in of the other stakeholders to ensure that whoever takes the reins of government, that those plans are executed. And as I said, I'm not aware that it's been done anywhere in the region as yet. Doesn't mean it shouldn't be done, but it has not yet been done. Will I accept the position of leader of the opposition? That's a political question, and my party will be meeting to discuss that issue, to make that determination. We have some issues to determine, leader of the opposition, opposition senator, all of those are questions. The people of Nevis have given CCM a clear mandate in terms of the number of seats here, and based on the tally in St. Kitts, it means that we have a majority of members sitting in the opposition. So it will be for the CCM to make some determinations as to what we do in relation to that. The job role of the Speaker of the House, Mr. Perkins, I think for the past 8 or 9 years, I believe, since 2013, Mr. Perkins has been a consultant with the NIA, advising on major projects. So he has worked with the Public Works. He, for example, was the principal person on the Pinnis Park. And now that we're about to embark on the second phase of that park project, he will be instrumental in that as well. So a lot of projects that we have been doing, he has been the person who has led in terms of the intervention. He would have done the Government House project as well. And so those are some of the major projects that he has done. So that is a role that he has played and continues to play. I believe that that's it. Fuel surcharge, I've answered that question. Any other questions for me? No? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. That was short and sweet. Thank you all very much. Mr. Bart, thank you for coming over from St. Kitts as always. And thank you, Ms. Budgeon and Mr. Hanley, for being here, and for NTV, and for all of those who carried the press conference. I hope that I brought some good news for the people of Nevis today. Thank you, and God bless you.